Welcome to the Current Review podcast. Today, I'm here with Justin Ortiz, and we are talking about the state of the union in the EV industry. Just new EV deals, used EV deals, because the market is changing like crazy now. Now you can get some really incredible used EVs for prices that we've never seen before. And I think some of these, I mean, we can even look right now, just dive straight in with examples like the Polestar 2. I mean, we're seeing the Polestar 2 now. You can find them easily in the mid 30s and even in some cases in the low 30s. That is a pretty crazy deal for a very impressive car. What do you think about that?
I think that's a really good deal, and the Pulsar 2s are pretty good. As someone, someone who's very familiar with a lot of the Volvo products, obviously very similar products, and they're good. They're pretty good EVs. They're sister cars. The C40 Recharge and the XC40 Recharge are also very good. But I think it was something even better of a deal that's happening right now that I think we previously talked about are the e-tron SUVs from
Yes,
Audi. Values may have tanked significantly from their original 90, $80,000 starting price back just a few years ago. But now you can snag them up for in the 30, $40,000 range. And I think those are a pretty hot offering.
totally. And I've even seen some for around 40,000 with still like at least over a year left of basic warranty. Because the thing is, we're not so sure how reliable these things are going to be long term, just because it is a first model year and some of them have had issues. But if you can get one with like a year of basic warranty left for 40 grand, like if we just look at this in the grand scheme of things, especially compared to new vehicles, like the Audi Q4 e-tron, which I think we both agree is not a great EV, especially considering it starts at 50,000, has 200 horsepower, no adaptive cruise control, no memory seats. Just it's like missing so
Yeah.
many features when you could buy an ID4 for less money, or in this case, a regular Audi e-tron. So sure, it might have a little less range, but it has better charging, I think, right? It
Better
should have a little bit.
charging,
Yeah.
better materials, better
Oh
platform,
yeah.
more comfortable. I think the text
And it's
obviously
all-wheel drive,
adaptive. Exactly.
air suspension. It's
Yep.
like, and you're going to get ventilated seats because the original Audi e-tron, they all came as premium plus and above
Yes.
trims. So you're going to just get a plethora of options versus the Q4 e-tron, which is just like, it's like there's really no luxury element to it. And
Yeah.
especially, yeah. So what are you going to say?
I think exactly, and I think this is interesting. You're seeing a lot of these manufacturers coming in a little bit late to the game, and not to be calling out anyone in particular, but still the Japanese manufacturers a little bit later to the game than the rest of the world. I think in the EV market, and you're seeing these unfortunately kind of like subpar products coming out in terms of just competitiveness and range and better technology and features are getting at these really high price tags. Meanwhile, the market's already been pumping out these EVs already. Those values are kind of lowering, and those EVs which have been out already are either like somehow a little bit better or matched in terms of like these specifications at a much lower price point. And I think they're probably a better offerings too. So I think that's going to see some of these brands kind of struggling to sell these like newer products that are for them when the market itself is going to be saturated with like these used EVs that are going to be, I think, very, very desirable.
Totally. And I think the a good point you bring up with just automakers being late to the game. I think another example we could talk about is Mercedes EQB. And that vehicle is very overpriced. I think in terms of a value proposition, it's even worse than the Q4 because you're looking at front wheel drive with 190 horsepower for $2,500 more than the Q4. And the design isn't, it's
Yeah.
a little blobby.
Yeah, I know what they're trying to do with the EQB, and I'm sure there might be a small, very small consumer base looking to get them. I think that real desirability is the possibility or like the idea of having that extra row of seats if you want to shove some kids in there
Yeah.
that don't have any legs.
Very tight though. But then
Yeah, I
again,
mean,
you can get a Model Y with way more features for less
yeah,
money with rear seats that are
which
also like
are
not
also
really rear
not
seats.
very usable at all. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, I'm not sure what I know they have to have something in the market. It's still, I guess, to say, oh, look, we have more than our main competitor, BMW. We have more EVs than them, I guess, in the
Mhm.
market. But it's
But
gonna,
and I think that's a good point because if we look at BMW, which has fewer entries, if you're looking at the BMW i4 used prices, these things are holding onto their value like a rock. They're extremely desirable. People want the i4. It's a
yeah,
cool car. Whereas you look at Mercedes lineup, they have a lot of EVs, but it's like no one really wants them in the used market. You can easily now find Mercedes EQSs, which started at over $105,000 easily for like 65 grand now. And it's
Yeah.
like, if you
And
look at that, it just shows you they're not in that much demand.
exactly. It's they're not that much in demand. It's just really interesting to see how they literally have just gone on sale within the relatively past 2 years, and they've already this
Mhm.
value drop has already gone pretty significant. Meanwhile, like Model S has been around, obviously very different, many different variations throughout these almost a decade now, and values for them are still, I mean, they're lower obviously than they used to the original purchase price, but it's
Yeah.
taken a significantly longer period of time. But that might be a little bit of a different anomaly, as the Model S has kind of like been out for so long, and a whole bunch of different factors may affect those prices. But it's interesting to see like how high priced a lot of these new EVs are going out for, and how quickly they're, even with the Lucid Airs too, like their values
Yes, the Lucid Airs. I think
right out
I've
the
never
wazoo.
driven one. You've driven three of them, so
Or
way
yeah,
more experience than I have. But I think it's a cool car. But
yeah,
yeah, it's just well, and it's interesting because, and I'm not sure if this is just sign of the times, because if you look at Rivian values, those things are still extremely good resale value. Even if you buy one new, I mean, you can
yeah.
easily get all your money back. But if you look at the Lucid Air, which kind of seemed to have, at least in the automotive journalism space, it had a ton of hype. Like it was a very hyped up vehicle,
Yeah.
but you don't really see that resale value. And I mean, my only guess is it is a sedan, and we're living in an SUV world,
I
and
think,
people
yeah.
want the rugged capabilities of a Rivian more than that of a luxury sedan.
Unfortunately, I do think that is an issue. They're really good cars. I do really like. I've enjoyed driving them frequently. Just for one this past weekend, actually. Um, I love them. And just speaking to the team there, at least in terms of like Lucid space, people are waiting for the entry level Pure One that's more affordable, and they're waiting for the Gravity SUV. So that SUV mindset, I guess, is going to affect the Aero's prices itself. But hey, you know what? If that means more Aeros in the market that are going to be under like 80 or
Yeah.
$70,000 for people to get,
And now you don't have to buy a used, or now you don't have to buy a brand new Pure because now you can get a used Grand Touring for
exactly
like 80 or 90 grand.
same
I think
pricing.
that might be a little bit wild before we get down to that price, but I mean, I've been seeing some easily for like
Yeah,
90,000 now, and that's a huge price drop.
yeah. It's that kind of thing that happens when we have all that new technology coming in. We're seeing that transfer of both, I guess, the money, but also the technology from like all this, the people who can afford them going out to buy them first, and then that's all going to slowly wither down to everyone else is going to
Hmm.
be able to more get acquire these EVs at a more affordable price point or more accessible price point. It's happening quickly, quicker than I think
Hmm.
some people may have seen, and um, it also will help satisfy the kind of lackluster used car segment in general. And maybe people that might actually encourage more people to switch to an EVs, as there might be more EVs in
Totally.
the used market. The ICE, as you want to call it, used car market now, it's a little bit tight. And it's a lot of older, really high mileage vehicles. And now they might see this more attractive EV price around somewhere ish in an area. It could be a good way to kind of like convert people over to that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think another interesting point on that aspect is even these kind of lackluster EVs like the Mercedes EQB, the Audi Q4, they're not that great, brand new for 50,000, but their prices are dropping like crazy. You can already get Q4s in the mid 40s now, and just
Oh,
wait like a few years. It's like once you can start getting those in the $30,000 price range, $25,000 price range, then yeah, sure, it's not that great of a car, but it's 25 grand. So what are you comparing it to at that point?
exactly. Yeah. And we are definitely starting to see more and more EVs priced both mostly used under or around that in that $30,000 price range, even sometimes even 20 in the $20,000 price range now if you can get lucky in some states. Um, and I think that's definitely going to be driving down just the general price of EVs, and maybe that might, if those sales do increase of those lower end models, that might attract more entries into that lower end market. Because right now, all EVs are pretty expensive and out of touch with reality. So even like everyone keeps talking about it in the past 2 days, like the Model 3 that you can get in specifically Colorado for that with the double incentive that they now have for like a 27, $28,000. It's crazy.
Yeah,
Um,
especially when you look at the average car price of what's it now, like 48, 49. It's like, and the
$50,000.
argument against EVs is like, oh, EVs are all 60, 70 grand, which I mean, sure, that might be the average price, but EVs fundamentally, people are buying them because they want this high tech. Their automakers are specifically making their high end vehicles electric, BMW i7, Audi RS e-tron GT, all these vehicles to, yeah. And of course, EVs are going to be higher priced on average than gas cars just because there's so fewer of them. But
Yeah.
when you're looking at vehicles like the new Tesla Model 3, how it's literally less money with incentives than a Toyota Prius. That's crazy. I mean, that's just what that's incredible.
Yeah.
And Model 3, way better to drive, rear wheel drive setup, way more techy. It's definitely like for
A
27 grand, I
no-brainer.
don't think there'd be any other vehicle to buy over that.
No, and the cost, the cost of ownership are going to be lower. Obviously, we've seen that in studies already. Um, and so
Or
yeah, I
as
think
Tesla points out on the website.
exactly. But yeah, I think the attractability is definitely going to be increasing more and more over time. And I think another big thing of that is just like the education on EVs. And there's a lot of still, like most misinformation and both of just lack of understanding of like battery health type of things or charging, obviously charging infrastructure is a whole other area of discussion. But I think once more people get comfortable, kind of like share their experiences with them with other people, I think we'll see even higher adoption rates, hopefully
Mhm.
sooner than later. But yeah,
Yeah, and just with, and I think that when we're talking about affordable electric vehicles, I think that's very important market segment. But there's some people who don't really want to target that affordable price point right now. And recently, Mary Barra basically said that EVs in the 30 to $40,000 price range will not be profitable for a while. But that begs a question. Tesla right now is selling their Model 3 for you can get them with inventory discounts from Tesla for like 37,000 for white one with black interior. So base spec Model 3 for around 37 up to 40 whatever for a rear wheel drive. I'm pretty sure Tesla doesn't I mean they don't give you their profit margins, but
don't
I
yeah,
don't think Tesla would be selling their vehicle at a loss because
yeah.
Elon even said that they would sell it at a net even to just get cars out the door, but I don't think they'd be selling at a loss. So I'm not sure if like GM has an issue where they don't have the technology advantage. What do you think?
I think it's just the simplicity, and yeah, it is. It has to. It's definitely going to be a technology advantage, but it's also just a simplicity advantage of like just Tesla and how they're building these cars. Like they're using fewer parts. They're not having all these complicated components, and pretty much the whole Model 3 line is pretty standardized. Like, yeah, sure, you're going to get different wheels, different tires, and they all can have different same pretty much paint colors, and just common motors being swapped in and out. So meanwhile, with I guess competitors, there's a lot of unnecessary components. We have unnecessary like battery lines and stuff, different models, we have different things. As we've seen from a lot of these like teardown videos that these third parties are doing, they're finding all these unnecessary components that are slowing down both
Mhm.
production like
Redundancies as
time.
well.
Yeah, and it's both production times and like just build complexity. It's just
Yeah, and I think
increased
that
cost.
is really, yeah, totally. And I think what's really interesting is if you look back at GM's past, just with Pontiac, Saturn, just all these derivatives of GM producing what was essentially the same vehicle, just with like different cladding,
Yeah,
different body styles. And it's like, why do we need all that? Why don't we just have one vehicle, just simplify production? And I think that's the thing, because with Teslas in particular, it's like, the white Model 3 is especially just like everyone knows it. It's like, oh, the white Model 3 because you get white for free. There's so many of
exactly.
them out on the road. But if you look at it from a business perspective, it's like just having a few amount of colors, it gets our cars out the door quicker rather than, and I think we can also look at like BMW, for example. And I think BMW manages to make
I was just gonna say,
somewhat customized cars well. Like yeah, they get out the door quick. You can easily get them at dealerships. But like if you look at a BMW, it's like what color trim do you want? Do you want like satin? Do you want like all these different trim colors for the
exactly.
window trim? All these different wheel options. Well, I guess wheels are separate, but different
Well,
colors, all this stuff.
yeah, I think the costs are really coming in like the bigger platform costs, development costs. So I think BMW is actually doing it better than I guess some other German manufacturers, if you want to put them out there. Because if you look at the i4 and even the new i5 and i7, they're all on the same core architecture. They're not
Mhm,
going out and spending billions of dollars to develop two continuous platforms that are completely different, that
mhm,
aren't even that actually, even when they're being developed, they're not even that crazily different from like a BMW's examples, which are all on the same platform, which is impressive. I think they're
mhm,
saving costs there, and while also still producing maybe not the most competitive product, but a product that's going to be like able to compete with vehicles in that segment, which is pretty cool. And I think that's going to help them, if anything, keep costs at a maximum or a minimum as most as they possibly can. Um, well, I guess we'll see what happens to that over time.
Yeah, and I think, yeah, because in terms of like customization, BMW offers a lot. Like you can, no two i4s will be identical
Yeah,
for the most part, unless you just want to like, I mean, but there's like four different interior options for free. So it's like obviously you're probably going to spruce it up, get something different. But yeah, and but they seem to be able to do that quite well. Whereas I guess we could look at GM again. I mean, just in the Bolt, there's a lot of different options, but it's like in a budget vehicle, why do you need that many options? Why do you need several different interior trims options for, I mean, what's effectively a very entry level vehicle? It's like, I don't think buyers are really going to care that much. Oh, someone else has the exact same spec as mine. Like, who really cares? It's a
yeah,
budget car they bought for 25,000.
exactly. And I think that the Bolts have been successful in some part of being, I mean, at least where I am, they're used as almost like fleet vehicles everywhere. Like there's like local municipalities using them for like
Wow.
little like go around cars. There's like some like traffic police using them as well. So I guess in that affordability aspect, they've been good for like local government purposes, maybe. But like, to the consumer wise, I'm not sure. I mean,
Yeah,
it's a
well, I
decent
guess
vehicle, but
yeah, I mean, I don't want to say the Bolt EV and the Bolt EV are not bad cars. And for the
no,
price, I think they're great cars, actually. They're really cool. They do a lot of interesting stuff. But just with like GM being GM, and especially with the Bolts now being discontinued, it's like everything GM touches seems to get messed up in some way. I mean, we can look at this with the Chevy Volt, which and I thought the Chevy Volt was an amazing vehicle. It was really revolutionary and groundbreaking, but they just had a bad marketing team. They didn't really know how to like they did not have any people in between the engineering world and the marketing world. They seemed to be totally disconnected and they didn't really explain
yeah.
well to customers what the car could do.
Yeah, I think that's one problem. I think GM could have really capitalized more on that Voltec architecture that they used to call it.
Mhm. And
They,
they
they
could have
could
put in different vehicles as
could
well
have
rather than
exactly.
just
They
the
could have put it
ELR.
in like maybe like an Equinox sized SUV or maybe something smaller. I think that would have sold like crazy, but
Mhm.
they're very hesitant with doing big projects, especially after what happened in 2008 and 9. So they had to play a
Yeah.
little bit safe, but I think they could have done a lot more with that
Yeah,
architecture.
and I guess like on the basis of playing it safe. So yeah, I'd say generally they played it safe, but in the areas where they got a little adventurous, they did not really do it. Like with the ELR, the
That was
ELR
a
could have been awesome. That could have been a
good,
really
yeah,
cool car. And I think just looking at GM's strategy and kind of mirroring that to Tesla's, which has been proven to be the ideal strategy, bring out an expensive car, scaling that technology, bring into less expensive cars over time, it would have made more sense for GM to maybe release a really cool like ELR back in 2011 rather than the Volt. Just start off with the ELR, make it give it a little bit more horsepower, just make it kind of fun, cool, and then scale that into the Volt. And then
yeah,
so you got the high end vehicle, people are test driving it. It's something to like aspire to. And then you can say, oh yeah, now we have the Chevy Volt for 35 grand that everyone can buy.
yeah. It's like that. It's that S class now I guess Model S style strategy of like big flagship product and watering down all that technology into
Mm-hmm.
everything else. In retrospect, that would have been a good idea for them, but and that probably would have been, more of like that halo car mentality for like the general public. That could have actually possibly explained like the Volt's technology and the capabilities even better so than it was, and just releasing the
Yeah.
Volt. out into the public. And
Because it is weird to start off with your first EV as like some everyday car that's mass produced. I mean, because
yeah,
the technology is expensive. And if I remember correctly, the Chevy Volts with all the grants and stuff Chevy was receiving cost like 90,000 a piece to make. I mean, it was ridiculously expensive. So why not put that in a high performance vehicle or something
yeah,
luxurious, something along those lines?
yeah. And I think they've definitely learned. They're doing that now with the Hummer EV, the Hummer EV
Yeah, but
SUV.
it's like now's the time you want to make your
Yeah,
Halo car. It's like that should have been a long time ago.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And I mean, obviously, these big Halo EVs are really almost borderline beta products for them. They're test beds for all this technology that's going to be eventually watered down to the Equinox EV, the Blazer EV. Who knows
Whenever
what
they,
else?
and yes, and you brought up the Equinox EV. So
Yeah.
this car is
The full
apparently going to come
replacement.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's apparently going to come out as a higher trim level vehicle this year in fall, but
Hopefully.
there's no order books open. You can't pre-order it. You can't put a deposit down. Is this actually going to come out this year? That's a good question to ask.
We're already close to Q3, right? And
Pretty close.
I don't know what's gonna go on with that. But I think they are um heavily pushing into that I'm sorry, the Blazer EV first.
Yes.
They're
But the Blazer EV is like 15,000 more dollars.
Yeah, and that's
And
also probably going to
it's
start higher end
yeah.
as well first. I know they've already started building Equinox EV pre-production units.
Mhm.
So we probably will see them at the end of this year.
I mean, I'd like to see it. I genuinely
Yeah,
think that will be a very compelling vehicle. If you can get something in that price range that's because I think the Equinox looks good.
I
The
just
EV,
yeah,
not
I
the
just hope
regular one.
I just hope they're going to be able to fix their scalability. I think they're having a little bit of an EV scalability issue right now. I'm not sure if it's due to parts or the manufacturing plants because we're seeing it right now with the Lyric as well as the even the Hummer EV. I mean, I know the Hummer EV is
Mhm.
kind of this specialty project that's kind of being built in low volume, but that Lyric EV was supposed to kind of be, or like it's just the Lyric, but that's supposed to be like that mainstream big EV on this new
And they
ultra
made like a thousand of them
cycle.
in the first
And
quarter.
yeah, and I don't know
Like
if it's that they're not.
it's
I don't think it's that they're not have the demand or selling. I just don't think they're able to like build them fast enough. I know I'm sure they want to have things being right. They want to make sure quality is like decent. There's no like major battery issues. They want to be careful with the batches, but I feel like there was a lot of promise and hype built up around this, and it's going a little bit slower than I guess anticipated. So I hope they are able to kind of rectify that with the Equinox EV and the Blazer EV. Um, just because those are going to be more mass market vehicles, and I think we're really going to need that. I think we all thought that 2023 was going to be that year. I think
mhm.
2024, hopefully, it's going to be that year. We're going to see all these big
Yeah.
come out at a
And I
more
think
affordable price point. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think for next year there's going to be a bunch of very compelling EVs out on the road, and especially with Mini's new strategy with Great Wall Motors to have the new electric Minis be built in China, um, to use some of their battery technology and all that stuff. I think, especially when we have the new Mini Ace Man out, we're going to have the new
Mhm.
Mini Cooper hardtop, way more range than the previous one. I mean, that's going to be a good entry level
Yeah,
EV for around 30,000.
exactly. And we're also going to have I believe there's going to be an EV version of the Countryman as well.
Yes, that's probably gonna
Yes.
be more like 40 or so.
Yeah, but that's going to be another
Yeah,
more
that's not a bad
entry
price
price
for a BMW product.
electric EV, and it's probably going to be similar range and specs to the iX1.
iX1. Yeah.
iX1. Yeah.
I thought that was gonna come to the United States.
I'm
That
very
was an
surprised it
interesting,
didn't.
and I think that one, it seems way more compelling than the both the Audi Q4 and the Mercedes EQB. And it's
Yeah.
like, I think that was a massive miss on BMW for not bringing that here. Because they don't really have an affordable EV yet.
No, no, they
That's
don't.
more mainstream, right? Because like the i4, it's like 50, but it's families can't really have that because it's more of a sports sedan.
Yeah. I think the issue with the iX1 is that range would have been okay-ish. We probably would have
But
seen
I
like
think it would have been better than the Q4 and the EQB because EQB is like 240, 250 ish.
it probably would have been around 230s for the iX1 if it was at least tested on the EPA scale. It probably would
EPA.
have been around that range. Um, I don't know if that would have been like what BMW really wanted. And you're already kind of seeing those numbers in the entry spec like i4s.
Hmm.
So
I mean, the entry spec i4 is 256, which
That's pretty
is
decent. That's pretty decent.
yeah.
Rear wheel drive, not bad.
Maybe
Um,
they just want to get over the 250 mark. But
yeah,
then again, they sold the i3 originally here, which had 81 miles of range.
that's
So
very true. And those are
that would
also
be better.
popular on the used market as well, i3s. I
Yes.
think
And one of
people
my favorite
probably
vehicles
see.
that I
Yeah.
was wanting to buy one, but unfortunately, there's just not many of them in my area.
I feel like they've gone up in value actually.
Yes, I really think they do have because I remember there was a deal I found in April. No, sorry, March. It was in March. It was a 2019 BMW i3 with a range extender,
Okay.
certified pre-owned for 22.9 with only like 36,000 miles.
Wow.
And I was really tempted on that. And I'm like, oh, well, I'll probably just wait till summer because that was when I was during
Yeah.
spring break. So I'm like, I don't need a car for now. And then I look now, I'm like, I can't even find one for under 25 that's certified pre-owned because I really want one CPO because it's like you can't really trust the reliability on those things,
That's also
unfortunately.
true. Yeah, but
Yeah,
they definitely I remember you seeing them on the market just like 2 or 3 years ago. They were definitely cheaper than they are now, which is pretty cool. I guess there's some more of
yeah.
the
Yeah,
that
definitely during the pandemic, they got like their prices were ridiculous, like way too much. I was like, why are people even spending that much money for them?
yeah.
Um, and now I think they're still going down, but not quite as far as I'd like to see. But
Hmm.
I mean,
Yeah,
they
for
are
sure.
still really cool cars for the price, but are they most practical? Not really. But I mean,
For
what other
everyone.
cars rear wheel drive, carbon fiber monocoque? Not many.
Yeah. Very unique cars. But in terms of like the used EV segment, there's definitely there is a wide option. You have to be careful. Like, do you want to go with one of those like earlier compliance EVs from the early 2010s, or
Which
do you
I would
want
try to avoid most of them.
exactly? And those,
Aside from maybe like the Spark EV, because at least that used similar technology that was in the Volt. And the Chevy Volt battery cells are like perfect. I think
yeah,
Chevy, I mean, like I said, we have a neighbor over here. He has an ELR with 100,000 miles and a Chevy Volt with like 130,000 miles. And they're both doing perfectly fine. And also a Model S with 130. So
there you
he's got
go.
a fair amount of vehicles, high mileage ones.
Yeah, but yeah, there was a lot of like those compliance EVs though that came out that I I'm not sure if people know to avoid. Well, I wouldn't say necessarily avoid them, but to be wary of their
Yes,
range
especially the air
abilities.
cooled battery ones.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know any ones that are particularly air cooled, but
I mean, well, the Nissan Leaf isn't a compliance car, but
no,
every single
no, not
Nissan Leaf has air-cooled batteries, even if it's a 2023 with the
same.
long-range battery. The Nissan Leaf Pluses with their bigger batteries, they're air conditioned, but they're not liquid cooled.
Yeah,
So, but I
interesting.
think the 2018 Plus cells are a lot better than the old cells, and they don't degrade as much. But I mean, it's still not liquid cooled, so.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
I
it's
mean,
not
like if you're doing a road trip in Texas where it's 100 degrees out, it's not going to be great because the battery is just going to be very hot.
exactly. Yeah. And it's not like one of those like 500 E's that Fiat made out in California or what else was out there? The e-Golfs. The e-Golfs were okay. And there's
Yeah,
the
they did not use liquid cooled batteries either, the e-Golfs, but their
really
battery tech was actually really good. So they said they didn't need it, which is
interesting.
something Volkswagen would say. Volkswagen also says you don't need one pedal driving. So I'll take
Volkswagen
that with a grain of
says
salt.
you don't need to be testing your diesels properly, but
Yeah, you don't have tested diesel, it's fine.
um yeah, but I think even just within the past, I would say the past 5 years is really, I would say since like 2018 on, we've seen a lot of like higher tech, really highly competitive EVs that are now dropping into these lower prices. And I think that's going to be a good sweet spot of a time to
Especially
be
Model 3 in
Model
particular,
3.
is
Yeah,
even though they're not depreciating as much as I'd like to see, because when you look at standard pluses, those were 37 new, and now you're getting them for basically 30 used.
yeah.
But it is a very, very, very good car for the price. Like I just can't explain because I was on the verge of looking at different options, but it's like the Model 3 is really an excellent EV. And for that
Especially
price
at that price
point,
point. Yeah, it's
yeah.
a no-brainer. It really is a no-brainer to get if you're looking at an EV and you need to go in that more lower affordable range. And you know, it's if and when this new updated Model 3 comes out, by the time who knows we'll hear this, but these current Model 3s will probably just drop even lower. It could be even more
Yeah.
accessible for everyone to get. So that'd be really cool.
I hope not too much though, because I don't want mine to go down.
Not too much of your thing, but
Yeah.
just a little bit. Just,
Yeah, and I think actually on the Model 3s, I think a good point I'd like to bring up is like it doesn't really matter if it's at high miles because I recently purchased one second hand with 87,000 miles, and
yeah,
these battery packs are just built like tanks. And I mean, I know people, there's someone on Twitter who just posted that their Model 3 hit 369,000
did
miles.
see that.
And
Yeah,
that you're not going to see that with an Audi e-tron. You're not going to see that with a Mercedes EQS for the most part. I mean,
and
no,
it
I don't
all
want to. Yeah.
yeah, and I don't even think that's an issue again with battery or just powertrain stuff. It's just that those big luxury EVs suffer, I think, just the issues of being part of those brands and
Mhm.
being just developed on, well, I know the e-tron was developed on the MLB Evil platform, which is a
Mhm.
gas
Well,
car.
it's
It's
the
not
complexities, like with
it's
air
like it's
suspension,
all
stuff
these
like that. It's
yeah,
like that
exactly.
air suspension, it's not going to last that long. You're going to have issues with it. It's going to need to be
Yeah.
fixed. I mean,
It's
all these little luxury amenities. The
exactly.
Model 3, people were like, oh, well, it's not that luxurious. But it's like, well, guess what? There's less stuff to break. And that's
Exactly.
really
There's a lot
nice.
of less stuff to break. And that's
Yeah.
why they're hitting these numbers. They're still valuable. They're holding their value well, and that's why they're still being like pushed so hard in the market because well, they're gonna last long.
Yeah. And it is like the only main issues are like little stuff. It's like maybe the front control arm might need an issue, something
Yeah,
like that. But it's like it's $250. That's not that bad.
it's not like
Whereas you look at other EVs, like oh, look at the Jaguar I-Pace. That was an example of a vehicle that everyone like in the automotive journalism community, like this is the
raved,
greatest car ever. This
raved
is a
about it.
Model X killer. Like
Yeah,
sorry Tesla, and they had pretty bad sales and a used market. They're like worth 30,000 now. I mean, a little bit more than that, like 34, 35,000. But the fact that you can get a Jaguar I-Pace still under warranty because they have a 5 year, 60,000 mile basic warranty for like 35 grand is pretty crazy
yeah,
considering they were 70, 80, 90,000 new with
yeah.
options. Now, the one thing I will say about that vehicle is like the tech in there is like not that great. It's like pretty bad.
No, yeah,
But
no, I pay, they're funky looking, cool cars, and honestly, kudos to Jaguar for being able to put out an EV SUV
well,
of
they
all
kind of needed
brands.
Magna's help for that because it wasn't even made by Jaguar.
For them to at least get something out there like earlier than like basically almost all the other big brands, it's kind of cool. But yeah,
Yeah, and I think actually on the topic of Magna, and I think a final thing before we wrap this up is a Fisker Ocean because that is coming out. Deliveries are going to
that's
be
coming.
this month. Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So, what do you think about that? Are you excited? Because I think that's a car I was like a little skeptical at first. I'm like, is this actually going to come out? Now I'm like,
I'm
hmm.
still skeptical
Think,
about it.
yeah. Well,
I mean,
considering, yeah.
yeah, I'm considering the passive Fisker, but with Magna behind it, I think it's a little bit more reassuring. I think for most, well, people who know what it
Yeah.
is, it's more reassuring than anything else. But um, that's another one of those like lower price point EVs that, well, in the lower terms, that's it's going to be try to go into the
You still
more.
got to pay extra for like adaptive cruise control, like all these basic
Yes,
amenities,
exactly.
but at least you can get the car for like 37.5. Now,
Yeah,
early
it's not going
models
to
are going to
be
be the expensive one, but
exactly. It's
whatever.
not going to be another 90, $100,000 flagship EV that's going to be out of everyone's price range. This is going to be more targeted at like a
Mhm.
general market, and I think that's been attracting a lot of more attention versus.
Yeah,
Well, I really do think that this time of like these $100,000, 150K EVs is really dwindling very quickly, and people are like, well, what's the point of EVs when no one can afford them? What's the point of this?
hmm
And so I think people are going to be demanding more. We'll see.
totally. Well, and I think that is a great point because,
Yeah.
especially with GM, with the Celestiq, that's 300 plus $1,000. It's like, what is the point of this vehicle? It's like if you're trying to tell us that EVs are fast and can go far, we get that. I mean,
No,
we've already seen all these vehicles coming out from. I mean, the Model S Plaid. Okay, I think everyone can kind of understand that EVs are very fast. All this stuff. we don't need another Halo car to prove it. Like that was kind of the point of these early model Halo
Yeah,
cars was to show the capabilities of EVs. Now we want cheaper ones.
exactly. And there's still going to be a market for like higher end competitive
Oh,
performance
totally.
EV and stuff. And I wouldn't even like I wouldn't bring a Celestic into this comparison because it's in a whole other ballpark. It's in the range of the new Rolls-Royce Spectre,
Yeah.
essentially. It's for that very top notch class. They want to hand pick every tiny little bolt and nut on their vehicle to their own liking.
Mhm.
I think it's
But
a
my
whole
question is, how
other.
profitable will that be?
I don't
Because
think
I
it's meant to be
mean,
profitable. I don't think it has
yeah,
anything
but it's
profitable.
like I'm just trying to think, like from a, would you put your resources as a car company into something like that?
Well, they are.
But would you, if you were leading Cadillac, would you put your resources into that, or would you focus on
I think it's part
more
of a
mass market?
grander, for at least in Cadillac's standpoint, I think it's part of a grander strategy to like really revitalize and tune in the brand. It's like, hey, we're really
I mean,
serious
I can
about
see that.
luxury and standard of the world again, and this is what we're going to be doing. They announced the upcoming Escalade IQ, whatever it's called.
Yes,
I
I think
think
that's cool.
that's going to be cool, and I think it's definitely going to take stuff from that Celestic in terms of like that bespoke builds area and
Mhm.
bring it. It's almost like the like a Maybach style of thing that I think they're going to be trying to do. I'm just like, predicting what's going to be happening there because otherwise the whole Celestic project would have been just ridiculously was one time one and go thing, which GM is famous for doing. So I don't know exactly what's going to happen there, but I'm just predicting and at least the sense of what could happen. I think we're going to see it dwindle down slowly throughout
Yeah.
more elevated
Well,
Cadillac brand.
yeah, and I think just like the actual final point will be just looking at like GM. It's like I do think Cadillac has been kind of watered down per se in recent years. Because like now, if you just like think of Cadillac, I'm like the XT5. It's like that's literally one of the first vehicles that comes to my mind, and it's not something that
Dude,
Cadillac probably wants you to think about. And same thing with Buick too. It's like, what is
I
Buick
don't
now?
know.
It's
I
like
don't know
if
if
they
is.
want to electrify something, electrify Buick. Like you got the Chevy Bolt. Why not make the
Yeah,
little Buick SUV, the Encore, whatever that is, make a funkier, cooler Encore on the Chevy Bolt platform?
I'm
Then
very
boom, then you
surprised
can
they
get,
did not do
yeah,
that. They could have
that would have been
easily,
so smart.
yeah, they could
You
have
got the
easily,
platform
exactly. They could have easily gone the Volkswagen Group route and done. Look, you have that one. I mean, is it MEB platform?
for Volkswagen.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So that's you have the ID4, you have the Skoda version, you have the Seat and Cupra version, you have the Audi version, all on the same platform. They're all essentially like the same car underneath.
Mhm.
GM could have easily done that with Buick
Yeah, because
and
it's like,
Chevy.
who cares about Buick? Like, let's be honest. Has anyone, have you ever talked to someone and like, yeah, I want to buy a Buick? No one says that. Buicks are just like, there's
Yeah,
literally no point of the brand. Like,
yeah,
fun, I mean, maybe whatever, but it's like, I don't really see that much of a point. At least make
yeah.
it cool. It's like, you got all these Buick dealerships out there. Well, granted, they're all just like Buick, GMC, Chevy, like all together, but it's like, that would be the perfect thing to electrify.
It
Just
would have been
you
something
got
to
the
really,
Bolt platform,
yeah,
make a small SUV, just put a Buick. You could have literally just got a Bolt and just put a Buick badge on it, and people would have at least thought it was interesting. I mean, it's like you don't even need to put that much effort into it because a
it
Bolt's a
would
decent platform.
it would have been something to really set if they really want to like set Buick apart from each other. And I know they're doing it in China, not here, but they could have made Buick a
They
whole
save
EV
all the cool
brand.
products for China.
Yeah, they do give all the cool products there, and sales there are actually dwindling for American brands in general. But that's a more of a topic. But they could have done that in the U.S. They could have made Buick like this whole EV, affordable EV or affordable luxury EV brand or whatever you want to call it. And I think it would have seen a little bit more success than I mean they're not doing bad. They have a market of fleet vehicles, rental vehicles, and people who somehow still want to go to that brand. But I think that would have been cool.
Rental vehicles, you're forced to.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, we'll cut that out for the Buick public relations officers watching this.
I don't get
But
proselytized from them, so they don't answer.
yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone would even be interested in reading the review. It's like, oh yeah, the new Buick vehicle. Yeah,
Oh
that's
yeah.
gonna be fun.
Yep.
They're like, isn't that just a rebadged Chevy Melt? No, 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 no. This is new. But
Yeah.
yeah, so I think that was a Great conversation just talking about state of the union in the EV space because I think
Yeah,
there's so much changing right now.
it's so much changed in just in the past 3 years, especially. I mean, if you go past 5 years, it's like the equivalent of I feel like 20 years of gas car development has happened within like the past
Totally.
5 years for electric vehicles. So it's a rapidly, as we all know, it's a rapidly changing and developing and improving area. So
I mean,
I'm sure,
incredibly rapid.
yeah,
It's
we can
just like
have this
exponential.
conversation
It's like
next year.
starting off with like the Chevy Volt early Model S, and now it's just
Yeah,
skyrocketing. It's just ridiculous how much innovation, change, everything adjacent to that is happening right here,
exactly.
right now. And it's cool
Yeah,
to be a part of it. So,
definitely for sure. And I can tell you right now, if we have this conversation next year, we'll have even more crazy stuff to talk about because so much stuff
yes, because then
is
we'll have the
currently
new Mini Cooper that'll be out. And then we'll
exactly
still be talking about the Cybertruck, which might come out.
if it comes out at all. But yes,
I hope it does. That'd be cool.
awesome.
Yeah.